What if I were to tell you zombies exist? You'd say I'm crazy, right? Well, if I rephrase that a little bit and say insect zombies exist, then would you believe me? Maybe you will, maybe you won't, but I'm here to tell you they actually do, and I'll tell you why. So we all know what a parasite is, right? There are things like tapeworm, things that need a host to survive. They can't really survive on their own. And they feed off of things like the host's food, or even in some cases, the host's body parts, like organs. So what? There's a zombifying parasite? Well, there actually is. So the Spinochordotus tellini, or the horsehair worm, is a type of worm, right? And generally, worms are very, very simple creatures. They don't even have a brain. Instead, they just have a nerve cord going down their body. So as you have probably deemed by now, the Spinochordotus tellini is a parasitic worm that zombifies its host. But before we get into the zombification, let's talk a little bit more in depth about the worm. At the very beginning of the horsehair worm's life, it hatches out of an egg in the water. Soon after the Spinochordotus tellini hatches, it finds its parenthetic host, which generally would be a mayfly nymph. While inside the nymph, the larva incises itself so that it can begin to mature. After this process, the larva leaves its parenthetic host and is now considered the parasitic larva. This is the point in its life where it enters its definitive host, which would be something like a grasshopper or a cricket. While inside its host, the hairworm starts feeding and storing food, because as an adult, the hairworm actually doesn't feed at all. It solely survives on the food stored from its time inside the host. The horsehair worm also takes its time in its definitive host to mature and turn into an adult worm. Now this is where things get tricky. The worm is now ready to leave its host and return to its aquatic environment where it can live the rest of its life and lay its eggs. Now, how's it gonna get there? Because its host generally is scared of the water because it's dangerous. The worm releases brain-altering chemicals into its host, turning it into a zombie. The host now will seek out water despite the danger, and when it finds it, it'll jump in, which often means killing itself, thus allowing for the hairworm to be set free. Now the hairworm, which is notably quite long, much longer than its host, breaks out into the water. Here, the horsehair worm spends the rest of its life. It finds a mate, they reproduce sexually, and then they die. Now, the thousands of eggs laid by the female can hatch and the process can start all over again. Now, today, scientists aren't 100% sure exactly how the Spinochordotus tellini manipulates its host like it does. However, we have some pretty good ideas, one of which being the worm secretes the neurotransmitters that make the host afraid of water, thus getting rid of the problem that the host doesn't want to go towards water. However, how does it make the host actually want to go towards water and jump in? In order to do that, we think the worm will release these proteins that are found to be very similar to the proteins in the insect's brain, which will alter the insect's needs or wants, and the insect will actually start to seek out water, and when it gets there, it'll be so desperate for water that it will jump in, not understanding the risks, and not understanding that it will die.
Yo, it's the Spinochordotus tellini mind-controlling machine. Takes a grasshopper's brain, keeps its motives unseen. Creeping in water, parasite with the scheme. Makes it deaf to its death like it's living a dream. Nature's puppeteer, yo, it's wild and mean.